Hey everyone, let me see if we are live. Page 1, refresh. Hopefully we are live. Yep, we are live. Amazing. Okay. Hey everyone. And how are we doing here? Okay. All right. Let's get this started. And the goal for this session today, we're going to go for an hour or so, is two goals. The title is Orchestral Mockups, and we're going to talk about speed. So compose faster, and then sound, raw sound. Huh? Let me see. Hey guys, thanks for joining. From India, what time is it over there? Let me just open this a little bit. Thanks for joining, you guys. Conectate Coaching. Hi, hello, hi, thanks for joining. Let me know if you can hear me correctly. Give me a thumbs up in the chat. Let me know if you can hear the sequencer. Preparing things over here. I'm going to make this dot smaller. So when I show this guy, 6 a.m. in India. Hey, Melbourne, 11:39. Good morning. Good morning. Over there. It is, what time is it? It is 4 p.m. here in LA. 4:40. So let's get started. And so the goal of this class is to, or to this chat, it's going to go for an hour or so. I've got two things that I want to do. Number one, I've been invited to give a talk in front of a few hundred composers. It's going to be live. And so I'm preparing that talk with you guys. So thank you for being here. Hey, Diego, thank you. And so what we're going to be covering, kind of like, is this. This is what I had prepared for you here. And so, first of all, we're going to be talking about how to improve your workflow so you can compose faster, and how you can improve your template so you can your music sounds better. And your template has two parts. It's got the front end, and it also has all the back end. So we're going to be talking about the back end as well. We're going to be talking about libraries. We're going to be talking about routing, compression, processing, mastering, reverbs, etc. It's going to be a ton of fun. Lots to cover. Again, appreciate you being here. I'm honored. There's great composers in the space. I've been fortunate enough to be doing this for 20 years professionally. Been teaching for 15 years since my days back in 2010, teaching at Berkeley. I was teaching MIDI orchestration back then. And in cinematic composing, I've been privileged to coach more than 20,000 composers. But what I'm going to share now is just what works for me, what I've learned over these years, and hopefully some of these things will help you improve your workflow, improve your sound, and be a better composer. Okay. So with that being said, let's get started. And I'm going to start with dragging this MIDI region here, and I just close the template a little bit. Sorry. There you go. Boom. So I just drag this MIDI region here, and I want to play it back. It's a strings motor. It's pre-written, and it sounds like this. And this is generally how music sounds when you are starting a song, when you are starting a cue. So sounds like this. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to drag the same thing here, and we're gonna take a listen at the difference. Was this track? No, this track. Okay, this one here, right here. And so I'm gonna play the last 2 bars of this one, and then I'm gonna transition to this one, and I'm gonna listen to the difference. It's gonna sound bigger. Wrong one. Sorry, double basses. There you go. One more time. So same notes, same everything, different sound. And why? It's just different. I want to talk about choices, right? Decisions. Different panning, different routing, different mastering, different EQ, different library, different patch. And at the end of the day, when we're composing, we're taking thousands of decisions every second, and those decisions take us to our music sound one way or another. Okay, and so during this hour, I want to talk about the and by the way, when we are composing, obviously as composers, it's an art, it's a craft, and we are creating that music art through those decisions. But there's a lot of craftsmanship in the process as well, meaning there are things that we do over and over again. It's the same process over and over again. So if we can outsource these decisions or these repetitive tasks to having a tool that decides for us, like for example, having this specific, analog saturation, this specific EQ, this specific brightness here at the top end at 4K, right? Sorry, at 10K. This is going to improve our sound, and it's going to allow us to work faster without having to do these things over and over again. Okay, so we're going to talk about all of the things that are going to improve your sound and allow you to work faster, more efficiently. All right. So with that being said, the first thing that I want to talk about is the big three: foundation, okay, panning, balance, and dynamics. And these are the least sexy of all the topics. So we're going to start not talking about plugins, not talking about process, not talking about routing. We're going to talk about panning, balance, and dynamics. And we're going to talk about this because this is the first thing that every time that you load a track, as you are composing, every time that you load a track, these are the three things that you're always going to set first. And those are the rituals that you are going to follow every time when you are composing. And so let's talk about panning real quick. So we're going to talk about panning, balance, and dynamics, and then we're going to move to template, and we'll describe my template and how it's built, and we'll talk about the front end of the template, all the loaded tracks, and we're going to talk about the back end. We're going to talk about the groups and the steps. But now let's talk about panning. Panning, balance, and dynamics. Let's talk about panning first. So panning. Panning in orchestral music or orchestral mockups, it's a funny thing because generally when we load the library, for example, let's say violins short notes, it already sounds to the left, right? And cellos will sound to the right. Right? And the reason why they sound like this is because the way they have been recorded, right? They've been recorded in a scoring stage. They've got the deca trees and the wide mics, the room mics, and they usually, depending on the libraries, but most libraries, the way they record is they will sit in the right position or the typical position in the orchestra, and because they are recording with room mics, it is going to sound to cellos to the left, violins to the right, etc., horns to the left, etc. And so generally, when we load the patch, we are like, well, it sounds where it's supposed to sound, and I'm not going to. You don't mess with the spatial component, right? Because it's been recorded in these amazing, scoring stages, and that is what you are using. You are not just using the musicians or the section sound. It's also the room sound. So generally, you're like, I'm not gonna mess with this spatial component. But the truth is, mixing engineers Hollywood mixing engineers, or Hollywood, or like soundtracks in general, the way they get mixed is, first of all, first and foremost, these days, soundtrack or cinematic sound, even if you record with an orchestra, is a combination of both samples and orchestra. And it's not because, a budget limitation. It's because samples do things better than orchestra, some things better than orchestra, and the orchestra does things better than samples. So, for example, emotionally, melodically, the orchestra will do much better. Runs, figures, things like this, orchestra will do much better. In terms of staccatos, aggression, precision, samples will do better. And so, um, it's a combination of both. And when you speak with a mixing engineer and they've got all of these, what they call sound assets, right? No matter if it's recorded with an orchestra or it comes directly from the composer sequencer, because sample libraries, for them it's just sonic assets, right? And so at the end of the day, they end having a ton of sonic assets they have to combine and mix. Some have been recorded in a scoring stage, live orchestra. Some are samples, and then they have to combine them all and make it feel like them all playing at the same time in the same room, right? And so what you see mixing engineers doing is actually repanning the sonic assets. And so the first time that I saw this, it blew my mind, because I never, load the library, violin sound to the left. You don't have to, you don't have to mess with the special component. But they will, first time that I sat to see mixing engineers mix my music, they started messing with the panning. It's like, no. It's like, well, let me do my thing, right? And so let's talk about this real quick. So if you look up here, let's before we go here, let's jump into talking about. There you go. Panning for a second. So when in Cubase, Logic, whatever, you've got your track, right? This is your track. This is your fader right here, and then here's your pan knob, right? And maybe it's center, and that's most sequencers. Even if it's a stereo track. Now with Pro Tools, it's not like this. With Pro Tools, if you've got on a stereo track, it's going to look like this. It's going to have two knobs, right? 1 and 2. One to the right, another one to the left, right? That's the right way to do it, because on a stereo track, it's actually a combination of two mono tracks, right? One being panned to the left and one being panned to the right. That's what a stereo track is, a combination of two mono tracks. So it would make sense that when it comes to panning, you have two panning knobs. Yes? Yes, well, this is not how most sequencers or DAWs operate. If you go here to Cubase and let's just bring this over here. These are our stereo tracks, and the way they usually look, let's open this one, and it's, there you go. Come on, there you go. 1, 2, 3, 4. The way panning looks, it's like this. You've got one control or one knob. In Logic, it looks like a knob. You can't, this is, see, you can bring it to the left, you can bring it to the right. But this is not real panning. What this is balance. And what, this is stereo balance, but it's not a stereo panning. And with the stereo balance, what's happening is that if, let's do this. With the stereo balance, we'll grab this. Okay, next page. With the stereo balance, which is what we have in Logic and Cubase, by default, you can change this. Let's show you in a sec. Just lower the brightness a little bit. So if you've got a stereo track, right, that is pan center, and you turn this knob to the left, what's happening essentially is that you are lowering the volume of the right channel. That's what's happening. So you're essentially, so if you turn this to the left, you're lowering the volume of the left channel, and so that's balance. So you're losing 50% of the sonic component. And yes, it kind of feels like it moves to the left because you're losing sonic energy on the right side. But that is not proper panning. Proper panning is you being able to have two knobs and being able to control where you want them. So for example, the right one, the left one, you may want to have the right one kind of like centered, or or mid right, and you may want to have the left one like this. So so this is full white, right? But you may want to have them like this, or you may want to have them more narrow, or you may want to have it like this, right? You may want to flip the panning. So you want to have this type of control. All right, in Cubase, it's very simple. You just right click and you go from stereo balanced panner, which is not what you want, to stereo combined panner. And now you have control over the right channel and the left channel, and you can narrow them and you can move them both to the left, both to the right. Let me do something. I'll bring this like this. No. Let me just open this real quick, and I think I can show this better to you here in. There you go. Exactly. See? So I can bring the right channel a little bit more towards the left side if I want. And now it's more narrow, but it's leaning to the left. Or I could take the right channel, and I could I could flip the panning and bring the right channel all the way to the left. Now this is the actual right channel that came all the way to the left, right? Change the color, see? And I can take the left channel and I can flip the panning completely, or I can bring the left channel here. So you can do things like this because you've got control over each one of the mono channel, the two mono channels that are contained inside the stereo track. Makes sense? So you gotta have control over these things. And why this is one of the most important things when it comes to orchestral mockup production, because in orchestral mockups we live in the stacking world. We're stacking over and over. Every time that we layer a track on top of another, what's happening is that we're stacking. For example, if we move over here, let's play this. We've got the horns, we've got the trumpets, we've got the staccatos, we've got a low drum here, we've got tubas, and we've got low brass here, and we've got 1, 2, 3 percussion. All of these have been recorded in a big room with the room mics and everything that we've discussed. So we're stacking a room on top of another, on top of another, on top of another, and this creates muddiness, which we will talk about in a second. And this makes our music to sound this creates muddiness and makes it lack clarity. Okay, and so generally the first thing that we think about when it's like, it sounds muddy, I have to clean up my mix, we think about EQ, right? But EQ is not what's going to fix the problem. EQ is going to help, don't take me wrong, but it is minimal compared to the effect of panning. Because think about this. Let's go back here. So let's talk real quick about sonic space. So we've got this better. So we've got 3 spaces. We've got high to low. We've got left to right. And then we've got front to back. That's the 3 spaces we've got. 1, 2, 3. When it comes to high to low, this is high-pitched instruments, low-pitched instruments. That's the frequency range, right? We've got low frequencies, high frequencies. Okay. When it comes to left to right, it's panning, and when we've got front to back, it's more present, farther away, more reverb. But that's it. That is this is the sonic space that we've got, and it's limited. Okay. Now, when we are talking about high to low, is the frequencies, right? And here's where we can EQ, and if we carve out some frequencies at around 350 hertz, and we do a small cut of 3 minus 3 dB, right, at 350 cycles, right, it cuts a little bit, and it makes our music sound a little bit more clear. For example, the cellos here. Let's go here to the cellos. And there you go. Let's open this. And there's an EQ. We'll get here a little bit later, but without, cleaner, right? So this helps 100%. But if you think about this, basically what we've done here is we've cleaned up 3 dBs at 400 and 2.7 dBs at 200 and 2 dBs at 2K, 2.2K. And so this is helpful and this is nice, but it's nuanced. It's small. Hey guys, thanks for joining. So instead, when we are, let's do this. So if we, let me just open this, stereo combine. See what I'm doing? Let me just bring this here. Hopefully, if you are using speakers or headphones, if you're using headphones, you can hear this clearly. Let's move into from the left to the right. And literally, when we are moving this right channel of this stereo track from the right all the way to the center, we are literally eliminating 50% of the sonic space that this track is taking in the left to right, space. So this is massive compared to EQing, and it, for the listener, panning things, it feels very natural. Instead, if we are EQing and we try to cut, instead of 2 or 3 dBs, we try to cut 9 dBs, you're going to destroy the sound, and it's not going to sound like cellos anymore, right? So EQ is nice, but it has to be subtle. And it's subtle, it's meaningful when you do this in every single track. But we start with panning, because panning is way more meaningful. Okay, so panning first. What does this mean? Just to summarize, when we, for orchestral mockups, generally we think, well, libraries have already been, like, the libraries, like when I'm using violins, they already sound to the left. When I use cellos, they already sound to the right. So then I don't have to mess with a spatial component. I don't do panning. Wrong. You repan things and you reposition. If you look at my tracks, if you look at the violin short, see, I close the left channel a little bit and I close the right channel a little bit. Let me just bring this back. Okay, boom. So left channel, right channel, this violin 2, this is viola, this is cello, this is double bass, this is the ensemble. I'm gonna open this because But this way you gain a space. And this with percussion, especially low percussion, works so well. Just close the low percussion a little bit and you're gonna feel all the power. It's kind of like channeled towards the center with way more powerful. So that's the first thing that you do, okay? Sorry if I spent too much time here. Um, so that's that, panning. So we talked about panning. And the next thing is we skipped, and the next thing is going to be balance. So let me get rid of this guy. So in orchestral mockups, the number one thing that is going to make your mockup not sound realistic is going to be wrong panning, wrong balance. Now, balance is one of these things that's really hard to learn, and it just takes practice and ear training, listening to lots of music, and balance is different. I'll talk about like basic balance in a second, but balance is different if you want to go realistic orchestral, or if you want to go cinematic, or if you want to go trailer, or if you different styles have different balance. But generally, if we talk woods, strings, and brass, strings in terms of balance sit in the middle. Woodwinds will blend inside the strings, kind of like will color the strings but won't stand out, and brass will sound louder than everything else. Now, that being said, registers change things. So, for example, a flute, if we've got, let's say, see if I can, if we've got, let's go here. Let me think. Violin. Violin 1, let's go. So if we've got, so like, okay, here we go. Okay, record this. And flute. So what I've got here is the violins, one section playing in its kind of middle C, right? Now, if I've got the flute, one flute playing in the same register, you're not gonna hear the flute, because the flute in this register, for the flute. Let me just bring this guy here. So the flute here, this is low register for the flute. It's beautiful tone, but it won't stand out. Now, if I bring the flute up 2 octaves, then it's going to stand out and it's gonna cut through the mix. Right? Same with pico. So it's different for different instruments. For example, oboe in the low register has projection power, but it has a different, but it doesn't have as much weight as the English horn in the same register. The English horn has more body in that register. What you want generally, if you want for the oboe to stand out, oboe's gonna play in the higher register. Things like this, okay? Trumpets in the high register, it's impossible to control. It's gonna sound louder than everyone else, etc. Right? So balance. So the three most important things: panning, balance, dynamics. So we talked about panning, we talked about balance. Let's talk about dynamics real quick. And once we, and again, these are rituals. Every time that we start composing, sorry, here, every time that we start composing, and when we load a track, or we and we're composing a cue like this one, right? And we add a new layer, the three things that you're always going to check is panning, balance, dynamics. Okay, and so for example, if we've got something like this, right? And I've got the horns doing dun, dun, here. And I want to layer this or double this with trumpets in the kind of like the mid register. Sorry, trumpets here. The first thing that I'll do, again, I'll check panning. Panning is right. I'll check here, right? So the first thing. Second thing, I'll check balance. And the balance for me, I control with this one. So that was a little bit too loud, right? So I have to bring it down a bit. Right? And then dynamics. Now, with dynamics, here's the thing. Generally, libraries, the way libraries are built, let me just go here. Let's go here. So, sample libraries are not real instruments, right? What sample libraries are, a sample library is a sample library is a simplification of what an instrument can do. Just because technical limitations. This is not kind of sample modeling. So what a library is a sample of certain sonic areas of an instrument. And so when it comes to, for example, to long notes or short notes, what they do is generally they record 3 to 5 dynamic layers, right? So they record the piano dynamic layer, they record the mezzo forte and forte dynamic layer. Okay, so piano, mezzo forte, and forte. And the way a sample library is built is that generally when you use modulation, which is CC number 1, you're going to be cross-fading between the different dynamic layers, right? So for example, this is CC number 1, so it's modulation. So CC number 1, and it's going to crossfade from. Hey Yi, how are you? Good to see you. There you go. You see the second one coming in. Three dynamic layers. So here's the first one. Second one. The third one. Right? So that's what was, and by the way, it's fading from one to the other one. That's why it kind of like sounds like soft transition between them. But with brass especially, is the hardest to get that soft transition because the timbre in brass instruments sound change so much in the different dynamic ranges. And so, because sample libraries are a simplification of the real thing, a simplification of the real instrument, what we need to do is we need to enhance those dynamics. So yes, we do use modulation or CC1 to crossfade between the different dynamic layers. But on top of that, for your instrument to sound realistic, you're going to use at least 2 MIDI controls. Start with 2, not 1, not just modulation, not just CC1. Enhance it with volume, or in this case is CC11 that's going to control the patch volume. Okay, so always grab 2 of them. This volume or CC11 is not going to change the timbre of the sound. It's pure volume, just volume, but it's going to enhance dynamics. So for example, if we were to just use CC1, it's crossfading between dynamic layers, okay, But for this to sound a little bit more alive, you want to grab both of them. All right. Let me demonstrate this with horns. Let me just record something here so you can see as I am playing. And I'm gonna do this. And all right. So 2 at the same time. With the strings, I recommend also I've got the vibrato control right here. So with the strings, generally I'm doing 3 at the same time. Okay. And by the way, you don't have to be able to, play the melody and record all of this, or play the chord and do all of this. You can record them later on. Okay. So that's that. That covers the first part, which is the. Let's see, how can I do this fast? Oh, I've got an idea. Give me just 1 sec. I'll move this. Give me just 1 sec. 1 sec. One sec. Almost there. Almost there. Boom. Yep. Okay. That way I don't have to go back and forth. Huh? So, panning balance dynamics. For those who just joined, thanks for joining. Yes, exactly. It becomes more aggressive, becomes more alive, becomes more real, more human, right? More alive. So for those who are here, this class started like this. I showed, I dragged a MIDI region here, and then I played it back, this one here, and it sounds okay. That's typically how things start. And then I drag the same MIDI region here, and I played it back. Sounds like this. And what I said is like, what's the difference? The same notes. It really is the same notes. What's the difference? Just choices, decisions. Same notes here. What's the difference? Decisions, different processing, different routing, which leads to different processing, different EQ, different compression, different mastering at the end, different libraries, different things. And so this, hopefully 1 hour class, I want to talk about the things that I've got implemented in my template that makes that improves my music's sound and allows me to work fast and efficiently. And again, as I said at the beginning, these are the things that work for me. There's a lot of talent in the space. There are great composers. Again, I've been fortunate enough to be doing this professionally for 20 years, been teaching for 15 years. And these are the things that work for me. And these are the learnings or the things that I discovered that work for me. And hopefully you get something of value out of this hour with me. Cool. So with that being said, we covered the 3. Panning, balance, and dynamics. Let's talk about speed and workflow. Let's talk about template for a second. And let me open up my template. So when it comes to template, let me now move here. Great, awesome. Now I can switch pages and don't worry about this. Cool. So when it comes to template, there are 2 parts. There are 2 parts of the template. We've got the front end, and then we've got the back end. The front end of the template is what we see, all the tracks loaded, right? And the back end of the template is the mixer. Now, the front end has the main goal of the front end is, number 1, having everything loaded, so you can put our hands in the keyboard, start composing right away. The second thing is get rid of mattiness. So that's the main 2 purposes. In the back end, we've got two sections. We've got groups, and then we've got the stems. Right? At the groups level, here's where the mix happens. Getting rid of muddiness is what happens before the mix. It's not the mix. And now, different composers, different templates, and you can adjust yours. These same concepts apply. You could be doing the mix at the tracks level and not have groups. Groups serve for organization and for keeping things optimized and efficient. Mixing tracks when you've got 1,000 tracks means 2,000 plugins. It's more CPU intensive. Mixing here at the groups section, which for me is this section here. Let me just move this over here. These blue ones. And I've got about 30 groups. See? Here's where the mix happens for me. We'll talk about groups in a sec. But here's where the mix happens for me, groups. And then stems is just for organization, for export. And mastering. I master at the stems level, not at the master. So the way this, to make it a little bit more visual, the way this goes is we've got a ton of tracks, right? Maybe 1,000 tracks or 100 tracks, doesn't really matter, right? Then we've got the groups, and again, I've got like 30 groups, something like this. And you've got, some tracks brought to this one, some tracks to this one, some tracks to this one, right? You get the point. And those are groups. And for example, for groups, we are talking maybe, high strings, low strings, things like that. It can be more detailed, but you can have brass, you can have woods, perk, or I would say top of the mix, perk, high perk, mid perk, low perk. You can have another group which is synths, right? Pulse, blah, 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 all this. Yeah? And then finally, so those are groups. So there's a tracks, groups, and then you've got stems. Stems are just the last few stems or tracks, and this is what you deliver to DAP mix. And here's basically orchestra, right? Keys, bass, synths, perk. They can be different, but that's it, right? That's what you deliver. So hopefully this makes sense. So all of this, for example, would go here to orchestra. All the percussion would go here to percussion, etc. Right? Makes sense? And that's what you see here. These are all the... These are all... Come on, you can do this. There you go. They're all the groups. And this here, orchestra, percussion, synths, pulses, these are the stems. And as you see, the mastering happens at the stem level. So I master each stem, and the sum of all of the stems go to the master bus, which is here at the end. Hopefully I can, this one here. And this is the master bus. And the reason why I do this is I could do it different, but I like to apply different mastering to each one of the groups. And that way, for the DAP mixing engineer, if they go from stems to master, it sounds exactly the same for them. And this is important because sometimes they are using the master track, and we're talking scoring at this. You're doing music for movies, and you deliver your music. You don't deliver the master; you deliver the stems, and generally maybe they are using the master track, but then whatever dialogue comes in and they want to get rid of the shaker, and the shaker is in the percussion stem, and so they switch from master to stems, and the sum of the stems has to sound exactly the same as the master. Okay. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments. Happy to answer any questions. I've got a plan for this class, but happy to answer any question. Okay. Now, so that's the template structure. Let's talk about how to make. We'll talk about two things. Okay. Let's go back here. Let me see. This is the initial plan, but things can change. Speed and workflow. So we're talking about template. We've described kind of like how the template works. Oh, great question. Great question. So everything is in the same session? Well, it depends on the composer. For me, yes. My template, and in the past, no. I was like 5 or 6 years ago, I had multiple computers, and I would have a master computer and a server computer. And no, 2 or 3 server computers. And the server computers, they run on BE Pro, and Ensemble Pro, and I had everything loaded there. And then everything routed back to my main DAW computer. And it was great. It's amazing, a lot of power. It's more complexity. At some point, I decided to. At some point, the Mac Studio came out, and before the Mac Studio, no, at some point the M1. I was PC at the beginning of my career. I was Mac. I was using Mac. At some point, I switched to PC. 2012, and I was PC till 2021 or something like this. And then I had a big nasty crash, and I lost data. I had to rebuild. It was a PC. Nothing wrong with the PC. It's just it got a disk got corrupted, and I lost data. Long story short, I had to rebuild. If I wanted to continue, I literally had to rebuild the entire thing. I still had the samples and everything, but I had to reinstall everything, rebuild everything, and it was an old computer. And I thought, if I have to rebuild everything in this computer, may as well buy a new computer. It's that computer was like 6 years old or 7 year old. And as a pro composer, rebuilding the entire thing and putting 1-2 weeks of work into an old machine made no sense. If in a year or 2 years I was gonna buy a new machine. So, and at that point we had like the M1s came, like were in the market for a year or so, and so I decided to buy to try to compress everything and going from 3 computers to 1 laptop. And so I bought a laptop and I tested. And the way that the silicon chips work is it's not memory usage, it's memory pressure. They can offload memory to this, etc. And it's a lot of fun. It's very efficient. And so I was able to load my entire template that in the past, used multiple computers and be pro into just having everything in the box. And so everything is, the way this works is everything is loaded here in Cubase. It is not active all the time. If you look here, I've got lots of deactivated tracks. So if I need, see that most of the tracks are deactivated. If I need to activate a track, I just press V, and this is a big track. Boom, it activates. And sorry, let me unsolo this. Ready to go. Right, and it loads everything that needs to load. So it's all loaded here. One session, one everything, easy to deal with. Yes, the file gets bigger. Saving takes a couple of seconds, but I can deal with it. So another question. I thought for resources, it would be better to have a mix session with the stems exported, so you don't run the virtual instruments. Exactly. Yes. And this is how it's done professionally. Great question. Let me just bring the question over here real quick. Yes, this is how it's done professionally when, number one, there is a big enough budget, and most importantly, where there's enough time. And enough time, we're talking at least 3 months, and for 60 minutes of music. I personally find myself working in projects where I've got between 3 to 6 weeks, not months, to compose 60 minutes of music. So you're talking TV movies, things like this. And so it's not a budget as much. It's not that you cannot afford a mixing engineer. It's not that you can't, right? It is that there's no time. That's literally there's no time. Think about this: 60 minutes of music, 3-4 weeks is 2 minutes of music a day without rewrites, right? You compose the music for 1, 2, 3 days, right? Then you've got 6 to 10 minutes of music. You send to the director. 8 minutes get approved. 2 need rewrites. So imagine about those rewrites. If you and again, and then the next 3 days you do 3 more, 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes, and boom, done. At some point you are done, right? But if the rewrites and you have to work fast, and those when you're composing, you compose 2 minutes of music. When you are done composing, the music is mixed already. It's just an efficiency thing. And the rewrites, if they ask you to rewrite music and you have to go back, do the rewrites again, export again, mix again, send again, it's just a no. Yes, like the way it's traditionally done and professionally done is you compose your music, then your music is done, you send to the director, gets approved or not, gets rejected, and then you do the changes. But then when all the mock-ups are approved, right, it's like these bigger projects, kind of like studio level type of projects, then the music gets recorded and then it gets mixed. But there's time for the record, there's time for mixing. When everything happens in the box, you have to deliver, and you still can record, but the recording happened like the recording would end in the mock-up session. So this is a system. So you've got the backend of a template automatically mixing the music for you on autopilot while you focus on composing, and you get a polished sound at the end when you are done composing the 2 minutes of music. Cool. Great questions. Thanks for asking. And again, this is kind of like industry standard, what I just explained, especially in TV world, where the schedules are so tight. Not as much for movies, like bigger movies where you've got more time. But generally, this is how it's done. And video games is different as well, because video games, there are so many assets. But generally, 98% of the times, for most projects, unless you're reaching that kind of like a studio level where it's different, this is how it's done. But again, you can do it however way works for you. Where did we left off? Cool, awesome. So template, hopefully makes sense. We talked about template. Template helps compose faster, improves sound. We'll talk about processing in a second. Let's talk about the speed. And let's talk about what tracks you should have in your template. Let me just real quick go here. And let me open this here. One sec. Let me move it to the second screen. Let me just go to. Let me just bring something. No. Give me just one sec. Give me just one sec, you guys. Type presentations. What do we have here? Not this one. Okay. I think I've got this. It's not perfect. Okay. I just bring this over here. So let me see. Let me get rid of this guy. Cool. Awesome. So let's talk real quick about. Let me see. Let's see where this is. So again, template, front end, back end. Let's talk about the front end, and let's talk about what tracks I've got loaded. And obviously, every composer has different libraries. You use different libraries, etc. And most of these libraries down here, which I'm not going to go one by one. I'm going to mention what libraries I use. And here's a summary of the libraries that I use for each one of the sections or families. So and then we'll talk about pre-orchestrated performance type of patching, which is where I want to spend the most amount of time here. But since I usually get this question, so for strings, I use Cinematic Studio Strings. That's my main strings library at the moment. I also use Spitfire Symphonic Strings, the old one. All the Imperia strings like Nucleus, Araya for trailer stuff, Scene strings for aggressive staccatos, all the layer scoring strings for bite for the lowest strings, like those cello spiccatos, very old, very useful. For brass, generally use Cine brass for like big ensemble kind of hits and things like this, and Cinematic Studio brass for more legato and a little bit more realistic orchestral kind of stuff. For woodwinds, I like Cinematic Studio Woods and or Orchestral Tools Berlin. Orchestral Cinematic Studio woodwinds have I like the legato a little bit better, but I like the tone of the Berlin woodwinds a little bit more. Old library, but it's still great recordings. I still use some like very old cine samples Hollywood winds for for ensemble and for effects and things like this, and some of the old Symphonia for runs and rips and things like this. For percussion, I use for orchestral percussion, I use the Spitfire percussion. It's the first library, the first commercial library they released. Cineperk if I need more detail. Not Museo really. I still use the old contact version of it, Cine samples. And then for epic stuff, use Hans Zimmer percussion, Damage, ADO Epic series, and things like this. For trailer pulses, things like this, use Keep Forest, Audio Imperia, Zebra for synths, and for piano, my main one is Noir. Okay, so with that, let's talk about pre-orchestrated patches. One of the things that is going to speed up your process the most is having on top of your template a series of tracks that are already pre-orchestrated. Why do we need pre-orchestrated tracks? Well, because we're composing orchestral music, and many times orchestral music has typical doublings and layerings that you do all the time. And you don't want to be building, or you don't want to be doing them every time that you want that sound. So you've got that pre-orchestrated, or you've got that pre-built already. It'll save you so much time. Let's talk about some of them. For example, and by the way, and this is for orchestral, realistic orchestral stuff, but it also applies to cinematic sound. For example, it's like typical Hollywood horns sound. It's a very typical technique, which is where's the 1 sec. There you go. So it's very typical for like the big horns sound to add one trombone, and that's something that kind of like a orchestration secret, but having a horn adds width to the sound because horns sit to the left and trombones to the right, so it's going to open the sound, but also it's going to add aggression and grit to horns. So it's going to add a little bit of weight. On top of that, when you are building your horn sound, for example, if I go here, where's my horns? Horns. There you go. All right, let's get rid of this guy. And here are the horns. So horns typically would sound like this, right? And this is a 12 horns patch. Great. The whole thing sounds much better. All right. So what did I do here? And again, this is a pre-orchestrated type of patch. So every time that I put my hands on the keyboard and I select this patch, it sounds big, right? But I don't have to build it all the time because it's stacked already. So this, the main three things, I'm not going to cover the entire thing, but the main three things are, I'm going to mute everything so I can unmute one by one. But the main three things is first of all, we've got the horns, great, awesome. Saving. There you go. This sounds big already, but it adds a trombone. But opens one solo trombone, opens the sound. Without the trombone, sounds great, but with the trombone, just adds aggression. And on top of that, the second most important thing is if we solo this guy here, this oomph at the beginning of each note. See, this is just a marcato, a short marcato. Let me just bring this guy over here. There you go. So, without, with, vum. Without, with, so much, right? And then add this a couple more things, and then we've got this. So have pre-orchestrated patches. You can go as sometimes you just want a orchestral hit, right? Something like this, right? And you don't want to orchestrate the whole thing. Okay, I've got the whole thing orchestrated. You've got the strings, brass, woods, percussion, right? Maybe double. You want this bigger Hollywood type of sound, or sometimes same thing with lungs, right? Here's the long notes. Sometimes you want to do something like, let me just open for you so you can see. Wider. So have pre-orchestrated patches because it's going to help you compose much faster. Okay. Let me know if you've got any questions in the comments. Let me just read the comments real quick. I currently have a MacBook Pro M1 with 16 GB of RAM, but I struggle all the time. It would be a good setup that I could last for a good amount of years. I would go any new or newer M Mac with a minimum of 32 or 64 gigs of RAM, I would recommend. I don't have it right here, but I've used, and I still use, my M1 Max Mac Pro, 64 gigs of RAM. And that computer has been, what, like 5 years already? So 64 gigs of RAM, any M Max CPU will do. I would go with something like this. That will last you at least 5 years. At least, if no more. Or you can use any you can buy a used M2, M3 for half the price, and it's all you need. 64 gigs of RAM. You can do a lot with that. Another one. Let me just move these guys over here. I tried creating a good template, but made my computer crash all the time. It's a good point. It's a matter of resources on one side, and also optimization on the other side. Not every plugin will do when it comes to the mixing side of things. There are many plugins that, number one, they're too CPU intensive, and number two, I can show the ones I will show the ones that I use for mixing here. But number one, they are too CPU intensive, and number two, they add latency. For example, if you look here, if I activate these plugins, one sec. One sec, let me just show this. One sec. Q center routing. Channel latency. All right, here we go. So if I activate this plugin, it adds, see, down here, super small, 44 milliseconds of latency. Oh my gosh, this is a no-no. So all the plugins that I've got inserted here add, what's going on here? What's going on here? Which one? It's adding the 92 milliseconds. One sec. There you go, this one, okay. Sorry, I'm back. So all the plugins, see what's going on here? What's adding that much? One sec. What is this? What's going on? Oh yeah, no. Give me one sec. Smith. No, this is because it's from a mixing session. These all, in fact, let me just go here. We'll go, and these, boom. So all the plugins in your, and where's this? One sec. Move this over here. Move this back here. So the plugins, number one, they have to be efficient, so CPU efficient, and number two, they don't have to add latency. Otherwise, you're gonna hit the keyboard, and it's so much latency, and you can't compose this way. Okay. So it's and again, with the more you add, the more powerful your computer has to be. Now my computer, it's an old, I already bought it secondhand. It's a Mac Studio. It's an M1. At some point next year, I hope when the new M5 comes out in summer or so, I'm planning on replacing. But this is already a 5 to 6 year old computer that I've used professionally for 5 years. So to me, again, this computer makes me money. This computer, it's, I do my soundtracks, my movies, I use this computer. And it's expensive, but I bought it used. So I saved a lot of money. I didn't need the M2 back then. The M1, there were M1s used. And so that's that. Let's continue. Are you familiar with IK Multimedia Miroslav Philharmonic 2? Yes. Do you use it? No. It's any good? Yeah. It just, you see, many of the libraries that I have are all libraries, right? And the reason why I use all libraries, because if it's a good recording, it's a good recording, and you are used to the sounds, then they stay in my template, and I know what to expect from them, and I work faster. Hopefully this makes sense. All right, let's continue. So, what have we talked about? Let's see. The big three: panic, balance, dynamics. Speed and workflow, we talked about the template. We talked about the pre-orchestrated patches. And then we've got a few things that I want to talk about. I don't know if they are interesting. Key switches, yes or not. Those are things that speed my composing process, my composing workflow. I don't think we need to talk about key switches. Sometimes people ask, do you prefer libraries with different, with multiple articulations in one track or separated? And I have a little bit of both. So there's some. For example, here I've got all these. See, I've got longs, pizzicato, harmonics, blah blah blah. And the nice thing about this is that you just select the track and boom, and start composing. That's nice. And other tracks, for example, for legatos or for long notes, here for violins, I've got all the articulations with key switching. So it's pros and cons. I generally, if you had everything with key switching, with key switches, it's faster when it comes to exporting to score, exporting the MIDI to prepare the score. But generally, I have an orchestrator for that, and so I've got a little bit of a combination of both. So key switches. If you've got any question regarding this, let me know. Retrospective recording is something that the way I compose. Let's just compose a little bit. Let's compose some music. Let's see. The way I compose is I start with the template closed like this. Let's see where I have a space. Let me see. Let me get rid of all of this. Let's go here. Okay. So the way I compose is I start with the template closed like this. And then I search my track. For example, let's see strings. And I record something. Let's just hit play. Maybe with a click. Let's see. And nothing is recorded, and then I hit R, and boom, it shows up here. That's retrospective recording. I like to do it like this because it doesn't put the pressure of your recording, right? So that's how I compose. And then, for example, I need horns right here. Let's see. Whatever, right? And then hit R, and there you go. I don't even know what I recorded, but that's how I compose. Let's do another one, piano. Right? Boom. And then I want to add a kind of counter melody, piano counter melody here. And then sometimes what I do is I create a region. I select both of them, and then up here I select the one that I want to. And now I can see the notes, which is what I should have done with the other one. So I see the chords. Let me just quantize this real quick. Boom. And bring this here. Boom. And record, or retrospective recording. And thinking, okay, I need to add here a solo, kind of like tremolo violin thing, right? So where is it here? Boom. Select the 3 of them. And then I don't generally do this just so you can see. And boom. And that's a fast way of composing instead of having to select the track and activate record, etc. All right, that's how I do it. Awesome. Let's continue. Back here. All right. Number 4. a few programming tips, because we said that we were going to discuss speed and sound. Sound comes later on here when it comes to like the mixing side of things. Number 5. But before we go there, a few programming tips. And let's talk about strings, because generally let's talk about sustained strings. So for sustained strings, generally, let's just record this. Then let's speed up the tempo just a tad. 120. 1, 2. Let me see. No. What do I want to do? No, let's do. Yeah. So the 2, 3, and oh, 1. Let me just go here. 1, 2, 1. Oh, let's go here. 1, 2. Cool. Awesome. There you go. So what do we have here? So we've got the F, those are minors, and then D flat, and then B flat, right? No, there you go, exactly. Let's record the low. So here's the dynamics. Let's record the low notes real quick. Okay, cool, awesome. So typical strings sustain pad, right? It sounds good and all, but how can and we used an ensemble pads because it's faster. It gives that kind of like ensemble type of sound real quick. We could have recorded line by line, but it takes longer and it sometimes doesn't sound cohesive. So how, what's the best approach to this? Best of both worlds is going to be starting with an ensemble patch and then layering the two most important layers for an arrangement like this, which are going to be the high, so the violin 1 and cello. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to, so this violin 1 here, this one, violin 1, and then we're going to with cello, which is down here, cello. And then we're going to create these two, number 1 and number 2. And it just layer on top. And it's going to open the sound, it's going to add width, it's going to add the legatos, and it's going to add that detail and character and realism to the ensemble, sample type of sound. So let's start with the violin 1. And this I'm using Cinematic Studio strings. And here we go. So I'm just going to layer this note here. Super simple. Here we go. Let me just record. There you go. The switches. I exaggerated a little bit. Let me just. Cool. And now let's do the cello. Same thing, cello. And sometimes I also record the cello. It's going to be C. There you go. So let me record. Okay, big switches. Here we go. 1, 2, 1. There you go, see? So let me just, without. Okay, we're gonna. So these are the layers. Going to mute them and unmute them. So without. Without. See? Again, without. With. Without. With. So super easy. Just layer them on top. It's going to enhance the sound a lot. Oh, sorry. Here we go. Boom. It's way too much. It's way too much. You have to bring it down quite a bit, but you get the point. Okay. There are 3 levels. There are 3 levels to your music. It's the composing, mixing, and mastering. But mastering is not going to fix composing mistakes. Mastering is not going to fix mixing mistakes. Mixing is not going to fix composing mistakes. The same way that mixing is not going to compose things for you, right? Mixing is going to enhance, going to elevate your music. It's going to make it sound bigger, wider, more cinematic. It's very important. But mixing comes after producing. Composing and production goes hand with hand. As you're composing, you're producing. And mixing is not going to do this for you, right? And so the sound comes, it's created first, and then it's polished with mixing, and then the final polish comes with mastering. Okay, this is very important. Cool. Yes, the live is going to stay in the channel. Thanks for asking. Awesome. So that's it. Let's see. What else? As you can see, this is a very unprepared class. Thanks for hanging with me. It's such a pleasure. It's an honor to be here with you guys today. Let me see. How many of us here? 18. You guys are crazy. Still with me after an hour. Okay, let's do a little bit more. Want to go a little bit deeper? I can keep going for a little bit if you want. Okay. So we talked about. We just talked about this. Epic sustain strings pads. Epic low strings staccato. Let me show you this guy. Let's see. Thank you guys. Let's go back here. Let's go low staccato strings. There you go. Let me show you. So, violoncello. So low strings or low strings sound like this, right? And these are spiccatos. Let me just open the library. And these are spiccatos. Spiccatos. If we bring it up to staccatissimo. And this is staccatos. We love spiccatos, right? Cool. So this is the typical low strings staccato sound. That's the way it sounds. And with a real orchestra, it actually sounds smaller than this. If we are playing 3 notes, because they would be dividing, right? Instead of stacking. With samples we stack instead of dividing. We're building a library, by the way. It's the first library that we are going to release at Cinematic Composing. It's going to be called low strings byte, and it's an auto-DBC low strings library that's meant to be layered underneath these bigger sounding strings libraries to add character and definition and color to this massive big string sound, similar to what I'm going to show you right now, which are this again. Let's focus mark. So let's just bring up the volume a little bit. Where's my mouse here? Okay. Cool. Awesome. So this is how it sounds. These are low strings. And I know what you're thinking. I got it already. Okay, these are low strings. Move on. So these are low strings. These are Hollywood low strings. Ooh. So how do we create this? How do we create this sound? Sorry. So this sound is a combination of several things. So it's these three. Stack. This is another pre-orchestrated batch, specifically for low staccato strings. And it's a combination of three sounds. First, we've got a big section sound, far mic, big room, softer performance, okay? But no aggression. No aggression. On top of that, we've got a smaller section, still big space, but not as big, a little bit of a closer mic, more aggressive performance. There you go. Even at soft, it sounds... Sorry, a little bit too loud. Let me just bring down the maximizer. Has more aggression, has more bite, okay? But on top of that, we've got a tiny, small little sound, which I think makes it the I messed up. Soft sound. Okay, cool. Get out of here. Aggressive sound. Okay, let me bring this up now. Aggression, but drier. Because smaller room and closer miking and faster release or decay time. Alright, just that's the aggression, the bow, that's what it does. And then finally, again, tiny, small, little sound. I messed up live. Sorry, guys. Sounds like this. There you go. Right? Just cello section, close miking, small section, a small room. And again, close miking. Right? And so this is what makes the difference, because if you combine the other two sounds, they sound great. But when you add this, let me see. Let me show you. Ooh, it adds that bite to the... See? So it's another one. Where was I? Okay. Epic horns. We talked about the epic horns. Tremolo strings to enhance strings melodies. Have you ever done this? This is so cool. So sometimes you're composing something. Let's see. Let's see. Something that's already composed, so we don't have to work too hard. What do we have here? Let's see. Hopefully it's not too loud. Okay, yeah. Let's after B section here. Okay, there's a little bit of, let me just move this correctly. This cinematic studio string, so you have to play ahead. It's a pain in the ass and all that. It's a great library, love it. But oh man, usability. This is the best. I use it all the time. I love this library. But usability, so hard. And I have to worry. Okay, sounds good, but still, it doesn't sound completely cohesive. It's because it needs orchestrating, maybe it needs some support on an octave, blah blah blah. But if you layer just, let me just add like, even an ensemble tremolo, tremolo, no, F, tremolo. Am I already using it? Yes. Let me just uh, let me just what use this one. So, there you go. So I'm going to record. Just going to record this here, and so I can see the notes that I played. And now I'm going to select the tremolo. Look at this. Here we go. Now, do-dum. Here you go. No, no. Let me just bring out the volume of this. I feel I'm pushing it to -6. Let's see. Once again. 3, 2, 1. And sorry. Boom. Boom. Can do better. Comes too early. Boom. See, it adds that aliveness. And I pushed it a little bit too hard here. I wish. Let's see. And it kind of like obviously you can hear it's tremolo. If you make it subtle, it kind of like simulates like the aliveness of a real section of real musicians, and it thickens the sound and adds character and kind of like the imperfections, like the good type of imperfections that make the music sound more alive. More. Let's see what else. All right, cool, awesome. So we talked a little bit about like the big three. We talked about template stuff. We talked about pre-orchestrated patches, retrospective recording. We did some composing. Talked about some things to kind of enhance sound, make it a little bit more cinematic, make it feel more realistic sometimes, more alive, like this tremolo thing. Let's talk about muddiness. This is a little bit boring. We gotta talk about this. Let's talk about the two main things that will make your music sound muddy. How many of us still here? 10. I talked, and then 10 people left. Okay. So the two main things that are going to help with getting rid of muddiness is going to be EQ and reverbs. But remember, panning is a very powerful tool that allows us to separate different elements. Just by separating, that creates clarity and avoids muddiness. So it's very important. Also, obviously, the arrangement. Your arrangement, if again, mastering is not going to solve any mixing mistake. Mixing is not going to solve any composing mistake. And if you have closed voicings in the low end, that generates muddiness. No EQ or no mixing is going to solve that problem. Okay, so panning, arrangement, panning first, and then EQ. Let's talk about EQ. So there are, again, in the mockup world, we're stacking, we're stacking rooms, one room on top of another. And so this creates natural muddiness, especially in the mid-low end. The problematic area sits around 350 or 400 cycles. So every track needs to be EQ'd. And I can't show you every track in my template, but here's the violins. Without. See how it cleans up all the mid-low end? Darker. So just by removing some of the unwanted frequencies in the mid-low end, it sounds brighter because these frequencies are masking some of the brighter side of the instrument, even though I'm cutting some of the brightness and the irritation in this area. Okay, so this is what we've got. A 3 dB cut at around 500 cycles, and then we've got 2 cuts at 2K and 3.5K. Linear sound, subtle but meaningful, especially when you put it all together. This type of EQ, it's in every track. Cellos, for example, cellos long notes. Sorry, I should have done this. Boom, cellos. Darkness and mud. Clean, dark. One by one. Sorry. This one, come on. Okay, so subtle but meaningful. And you do this in every single track, Okay, every single track. So that's the number one thing that gets rid of muddiness. Second thing is reverbs. You don't use the same reverb for all tracks. You use different type of reverbs. And we are running out of time, so I'm going to simplify how I explain this. But these are my reverbs. Let me just bring them over here real quick. There you go. So number one. So these are my reverbs. I'll show them in a second. So we've got some Seventh Heaven, some cinematic rooms. I'll open them one by one. But before each reverb, as you can see, there's EQ, and after each reverb, there's EQ. So before each reverb, there is a low cut, so a high pass, and a little bit of a shelf, all of them. So before this signal enters the reverb, there's a little bit of EQ. And when the signal outputs the reverb, there is a multi-band dynamic, kind of like it's dynamic EQ. So And the reason is because think piano. For let me just grab piano. Okay. Okay, and here, oops, cool. Piano sounds good all together, or you know, or violins. Add reverb sounds good, but when you have violins and violas and cellos and horns and brass and whatever, right? And then reverb doesn't sound clear anymore. And so this cleans up what this is. This is not EQing the piano. This is dynamically EQing the reverb output when it gets too much. Okay, so this just cleans up. It's a cleaning up process. So what do we have here? So first, I've got how many? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 reverbs. So I've got first of all, I've got a very short gated reverb. This case, Bahala Room is the big gate preset, very short reverb. This is for percussive instruments. Second, I have a second is a short reverb generally for percussive instruments and top of the mix type of percussion. This is Pro R. It's a 1.9 second with a little bit of dampening at 200 cycles, 225, and a faster decay the lower the frequencies. Then the next reverb is Seventh Heaven, and this kind of like emulates sort of. Oh, let me just do this one by one. This is the first reverb. It's Seventh Heaven. It's a mid reverb. I usually use this one for pianos. The next one that I've got is no, sorry, for sorry, this one here, pianos. There you go. There you go. So I use this one for piano. It's the piano hall preset, and it's a 2-second decay reverb. Then I've got this one, which is like mid reverb. I use it for kind of like, so Seventh Heaven. It kind of like it's they call it so it's sort of like a convolution reverb type of emulation. It's not exactly, but I use it like this. Sometimes I use Altiverb for convolution reverb, but Altiverb is more CPU intensive, so I use this more often in my composing template. But this is the mid reverb, and it's the medium hall preset with a 1.8 second decay. Now, and then I've got all the other orchestral reverbs. The third, Seventh Heaven. This is the scoring stage preset. It's a 2.2 second. This is what I use for kind of like the convolution type sort of reverb. And here's the thing with, let me see if I can find, something for you. Well, let me finish explaining the reverbs. But generally for orchestral music, you're going to add not one but two reverbs. First, you're going to add a convolution reverb and then an algorithmic reverb. So this is the first reverb that I add to most orchestral instruments, and this kind of like emulates the convolution reverb. Convolution reverb emulates a room around the sonic asset or the instrument. This puts the instrument, even though it already has a room component, we talked about this earlier, the same concept that applies to panning that we described at the beginning applies to reverb as well. So yes, they do have a room component, but sometimes they don't have enough. And also you want to, because they all have been recorded in different rooms, you want to make them sound like them all playing the same room. And it starts with this. After this, I've got the main I've got two main orchestral algorithmic reverbs that I use for orchestral instruments. That are the Bahala Room and the cinematic rooms. For the Bahala Room, I use the Broadcasting Concert Hall, and for the Bahala Room, I use the Legato Hall preset. And those are my two main orchestral reverbs. And then I feel I've got one missing. Why do I have one missing? Which one sec? There you go. This is the main orchestral. There you go. One missing. Cinematic room. There you go. This is my main. Sorry, not the legato hall. My main orchestral algorithmic reverb is this one. I use the Dark Cathedral. It's a 2.3 seconds. It's a modified preset at 2.3 seconds decay time, and this is my main orchestral algorithmic reverb. And I switch between this one and Valhalla. Valhalla is very similar. It's a different color. Sometimes if I want a little bit a deeper reverb with more character, I'll use Valhalla. It has more color. Cinematic Rooms is a little bit more transparent. It's very immersive. It's very musical. I use this most of the times. Cool. For long strings, for long legato strings, I use this preset, the legato hall. This is not the main orchestral. This is the one that I use for high legato long strings type of thing. Usually use this one. I feel that I've got another one missing. There you go. Here. Boom. Exactly. And for low legatos or low lines like cellos and things like this, I generally use the score stage. It's a 2.2 second decay, and this is Cinematic Rooms again. Now moving on to brass, I generally use this one. It's a very old reverb from Waves. It's a convolution reverb that I use more as an algorithmic reverb because this is a sampled, the impulse response is from a Lexicon 48L, so it's actually an algorithmic. They sampled an algorithmic reverb. Then I use this one. It's a Hall preset with a 2-second decay Hall because it has this long even decay that works so great, so good for brass. I like this subtle for brass. Sometimes I use the Cinematic Rooms, but I like this one for brass generally. And finally, I've got this for like ultra long. I use this slow attack cathedral reverb that I use for really long. This is a 7.6 seconds decay time that I use for effects and things like this, for very long reverbs. And these are my reverbs. Sometimes, depending on the project, I'll load more, but these are my main ones. Cool. All right, now think generally, if you've got any question, please let me know in the comments. But let's talk about reverbs real quick and how to choose the right reverb and the right amount of reverb depending on the instrument. Let me just real quick check how many. Let me just go here and I'll mute. Let's go up. Sorry. I'll have to mute reverbs real quick and how to choose the right. There you go. Awesome. Cool. Everything running smooth. And okay, reverbs. So when to so short, long, high, low. Here's less, more, less, more, less, and shorter, more, and longer. Okay. So what this means is that for short notes, for fast ostinatos, we're going to use less reverb, and shorter reverb or no reverb. For long notes, we can use more reverb. For high-pitched instruments, you can use more. Sorry. There you go. For high-pitched instruments, we're going to use more reverb and longer reverb. For low-pitched instruments, we're going to use less reverb and shorter reverb, or no reverb. So, for example, low, staccato strings, like the cello ostinato, maybe no reverb or short reverb. For, let's say, strings, long notes, harmonics, right? It's a long note. It's high pitched. We can use a ton of reverb. It's going to work great. This is how we decide how much reverb and the reverb length based on this. So top of the mix, tiki takas and things like this for like type of things for percussive stuff. Percussive is number one, short notes, right? Yes, it's high, so we can add a little bit of reverb, but it's going to be a fast decay or a gated reverb, things like this. Okay, so that's one thing. And then we've got the type of reverb. We've got impulse, we've got convolution reverbs, we've got algorithmic, we've got plates, got the springs, etc. Right? But essentially, we're going to be using two. We're going to use an algorithmic reverb to emulate, to simulate a room around the sonic asset or the sonic or the instrument. And then on top of that, we're going to add an algorithmic reverb. Okay, and then we're going to apply these rules for both of them. All right, so that's how it goes. Cool, awesome. Let me know if you've got any question in the comments. Moving on. This is reverbs, and by having this separation that we've seen here, having all these separate reverbs, each reverb has a different character. So different character means different timbre, which means that it's a different sonic element that stands apart from other elements, so that creates separation and clarity instead of all the instruments using the same reverb. Okay, so different reverbs create clarity. That's how to choose the different reverbs. For example, again, the Valhalla has more character, has more color. The cinematic room, that particular preset, is more transparent, it's more immersive, right? Two different colors that create separation. All right. Mastering chain, and then we are done for the day. Let's so my mastering chain, I usually, again, same question as before, but mastering is supposed to be done later on. Once you are done composing, you export all your stems, and then you do the mixing. And then after the mixing, you export the stereo track or the surround, or 5.1, whatever, and then you do the mastering, right? Yes, typically yes, unless you're working on a project where you've got to compose 60 minutes of music and you've got 3 to 6 weeks, and then everything happens in the box. Do you use closed mics or mainly 3 mics in? I generally, I have a different mix depending on the library that I'm using. It's mainly the Deca tree, yes. Yeah, mainly the room mic, so the room and the Deca tree. Sometimes a little bit of closed mics. I've got a group of strings where I've got kind of closer sound and then far sound, and that allows me to go from one to the other or to blend the close sound. But yeah, most of my main strings is the room and Deca tree. Do you use the same reverbs for solo instruments and ensembles? No. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do if I want the solo instrument to feel in the same room. Yes. If I want to separate the solo instrument, I'll have a dedicated reverb or set of reverbs for the solo instruments. Great question. Okay, mastering. So this is my basic mastering is 4 plugins essentially. For percussive instruments, it's slightly different. For percussive stems, a little bit different, but 4 plugins. Number one, Shadow Hills. Does most of the heavy lifting. It's literally it's preset 22, which is this one here. It's the mastering medium PGM. That's it. It does the magic. It widens the sound, adds a little bit of very subtle compression. It's beautiful. Adds depth. It's just beautiful, beautiful. In the past, I used to Ozone, and I do the whole thing, the entire process. EQ, multiband compression, etc., etc. The bright, multiband brightening, multiband width, and then loudness. And I still do it if I need to, if it's one of these tracks where I've got the time, right? But generally, when I'm composing one of these projects where I've got the time, someone else does this for me. I don't do this anymore. But for fast-paced projects, mastering happens automatically with this set of 4 plugins, which start with the Shadow Hills compressor, and then some sort of like a tape emulation plugin. In this case, is the J37, which adds a little bit of character and warmth to the sound. Then it goes to Soothe, but Soothe, and this is the contain the low mid orchestra preset. As is, I think I lowered a little bit the amount, the depth, and that's it. Soothe is beautiful, but it adds a ton of latency or delay, and so it's bypassed while I'm composing, and then I activate it when I export. And then a little bit of fresh air, just a tad of brightness. So 9% in the mids, 6% in the highs. That's it. Let me see if I can show you. What do we have loaded? Let me see. Strings, ensemble. No? Strings. This one. Okay. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the easiest to hear the difference. So let's start with, let's bypass all of them. 1, 2, and then let's start with this one. Nice. Just it's alive, right? All of a sudden, it just, oh my gosh. Dang, he's so good. So good. So good. Okay, so this is the first one. Second one, this one. Colors the sound in a good way. Then we've got this one. It just softens it in such a good way. Oh man, it gets rid of all the irritation. In such an organic way, and it feels more transparent, right? Beautiful. And then finally, a little bit of brightness. Maybe a little bit too much. It depends on the cue, on the style. I'll tweak this. But adds that brightness to the master, So that's that. For percussive instruments before that, obviously in the groups there's different layers of compression for the percussive instruments, but in the final stem there is a little bit of multiband compression for percussive instruments, and then there's the same shadow hill, which is over here with the same setting, same preset, the same J37. And then what's different is instead of having soothe, I'll have spiff, which will do beautiful things for percussive and pulsed stuff. And same company, Soothe and Spiff, same company. And then same thing, adds a little bit of fresh air, a little bit of brightness. Way more accentuated here, 2312 for percussive instruments. But I tweak these depending on the cue. All right, that's it. I think we're done for today. If you get any final question, let me know in the chat. But other than that, I think we are good. All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Appreciate your time. Let me see how many of you are here. 14. Went up a little bit. 20 most. Almost the entire time went down to 10. I was sad. Then went up to 14. Thank you so much. Have a great end of the day wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you in the next one. Talk soon. Bye-bye.